Welcome to episode number 28 of the Marine Layer podcast with TJ Mathewson and Lyle Goldstein. On today's pod, we welcome on Andrew Urrutia, the founder of TrainKicks. If you happen to go to the Mariners City Connect event this past weekend, he was painting a Julio Rodriguez mural. That's him. The second consecutive Lake Washington Kangaroo we've had on this podcast. Lyle is proud, made the connection, got him on here, make some custom cleats for some athletes around baseball and some Mariners as well. It's a different kind of conversation, but it was good to have him on to talk about, some equipment of Major League Baseball that he's super good about. We have our three Mariners storylines of the week. We take a look down on the farm. Lyle and I each will pick out our standout prospect performer of the week and take a little bit of a look at that. We take a look around baseball with our MLB Wraparound, another Russell Wilson Umpire of the week, and we close out the show with Speak Your Mind. Let's get it rolling. And we welcome you onto this episode of the Marine Layer podcast here on Monday, May 8th. And Lyle, we've done this again, but it seems like we have some more big news.
We got Erik Bedard coming on the podcast.
What? Is this like the first podcast he's ever done?
I feel like it would have to be. One, because podcasts weren't that big back when he was with the Mariners or playing in general. And two, the guy hated the media.
So what do we think? So we're going to need to ask Ryan Divish first what questions we should ask him. I don't think anyone knows better, knows what we should ask him more than Ryan Divish. It seems like he'd probably give us some pretty good questions if we were to come up with some.
He'd probably have a few. But we're sitting here kidding. No, our big news is not that we're getting Erik Bedard on the podcast. Although
Erik, if you're listening, man, I don't think you do many of these. We'll give you a platform. We'll do it.
We'll happily give him a platform. No, but our real news is we've got some advertising all of a sudden. So we're pretty excited about that. And we've got some advertising partnered with a company that goes by the name of In the Clutch. They're a sports apparel company. They sell a lot of really cool baseball t-shirts, and you're going to be seeing us wearing some on their social, or on our social media pages here in the next week or so. Our shirts are on the way. We're really excited about them. But In the Clutch Clothing Company is an official partner of the Marine Layer podcast. In the Clutch is the ultimate fan site for Seattle baseball merchandise, including the Celebration Trident, official MLB PA shirts for J-Rod, Jared Kelenic, Cal Raleigh, and Los Bomberos. Guys, I'll just give you a spoiler here. I had to get the Jared Kelenic shirt, right? I had to. So that's on the way. No, nobody is shocked. It's a cool shirt. It says just Kellen it. It's a play on with his name, of course. You'll see it again. If you go to our social media pages this week, you'll see it. TJ got the Los Bomberos shirt, which, by the way, if you saw Matt Brash last year wearing a shirt that said Los Bomberos in some interviews post-game on TV last year, that was a shirt from In the Clutch. So players are wearing this stuff. Brash loved the shirt, and we're all about it too. So if you guys are interested in some In the Clutch clothing apparel, you can go to the site, go to intheclutch.com and use code MarineLayerPod to get 10% off. And currently, every shirt on their website ships within the U.S. for free. So again, that's code MarineLayerPod on intheclutch.com for 10% off of any of their Seattle apparel. Along with that, guys, just as an introduction to the company, we're going to be doing a little bit of a giveaway here as well. So for you guys to win a free shirt from In the Clutch, you just have to do two things. You have to be following us on Instagram, and you have to be following In the Clutch on Instagram. So find their Instagram, go give them a follow, give us a follow at Marine Layer Pod. We'll keep this open for 2 weeks, and then we'll pick a winner at the end of those 2 weeks. So we're pretty excited about this partnership. I certainly can't wait to get the shirt in the mail. And they've got some really cool stuff. So we would highly, highly recommend you guys checking it out.
Think about it this way. Summer's coming up. We're going to lose the hoodies. It's going to get warm out. You're just going to want to be rocking a t-shirt and some shorts, whether you're going to a baseball game, whether you're going on vacation, whether you're going to the beach, whether you're just, you're just going for a walk around and you want to stand out in something and show something a little different than something from the official Mariners team store. I would really recommend giving these guys a look. They have some really cool shirts, and it's going to make some people stop and look at your shirt. I'm sure we'll show it to you on our social media pages. We get them. You can go check them out in the clutch. Just give them a search in Google. You find their website and take a look at some of their Mariners shirts. They got some really cool ones. I'm really excited for my Los Bomberos shirt. That thing is sick. It's a pretty good. They're good shirts. They really are. So, hey, upgrade your style for summer. That I'm just throwing some free advice at you right here. Go do it. Go give them a follow on Instagram. Go find some shirts. Use our code MarineLayerPod for 10% off. You won't regret it.
And again, you want to follow our social media accounts, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, at Marine Layer Pod. Again, you'll be seeing us wearing them. You'll be seeing us wear it on some shows too. Believe me, in the coming weeks, you're going to see us wearing it on the show. Getting away from that, TJ, because we're very, very excited about the partnership, but starting to dig into our last week here before we get to our Mariner storylines. We got to be at the ballpark again this past weekend, or I guess I did. I know in the coming weeks, you'll be up here as well. And I just thought I'd give a quick little recap. Again, kind of giving a plug to our social media channels here. I'd say we took another big step this weekend because this past weekend, we got some player content. And I think we were pretty excited to do it. So we grabbed Taylor Trammell, we grabbed Bryce Miller, each of them for about just 30 seconds. That's all we needed of their time. And if you go on to some of our social media pages, you'll start to see us doing some of these fun, engaging interviews where we just ask these players some fun questions. And really, we're just trying to get some personality out of them because these guys are all interesting and they certainly all have personality. We're just trying to kind of quarterback that in a little bit of a way and bring some of it out of them with some of these fun questions. So if you want to go check that out, along with more that we're going to be trying to do throughout the year, go check that out too. But yeah, I was pretty excited to kind of grab these guys when they were walking by on the right field line, and certainly gracious that they had some time because, again, it turned into some cool stuff.
Didn't realize Penn Murphy was A, quite the stylist, B, trusted enough to plan an entire wedding. I mean, Taylor Trammell, he had to think about it for a second, but he was pretty confident Penn's the right guy to plan a wedding. And like, again, these are the type of things, they don't come up in press conferences. Maybe, an off the record conversation, you'll, shoot the shit with a beat writer in spring training or something when the vibe's really low key. But in season, I mean, you just don't really get these kind of personable answers out of players. It's nice to just like say, hey, like you field the same questions every single day for 6-7 months a year from media. You're getting asked about the same thing. You're getting asked about tonight's starting pitcher. You're getting asked, why'd you go for 3 yesterday? All these things. And then us, for Lyle to start, goes up to you and is like, okay, anyone on the team, who's planning your wedding? Boom. Get him to crack a smile, man. I mean, Taylor was half laughing the whole time he's trying to answer that question. And it's good, right? We mentioned multiple times, we have a good friend who works in the Rainiers organization as of right now. And, him and Taylor, hit it off pretty well. So it's a pretty easy introduction too. Shout out to you, Jeremy Bush, for helping us out in that retrospect. The mustache really does some wonders. And he made a good impression on Taylor Trammell. And I think Lyle did a good follow up there as well. So go check that out on our social media. Go Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, at Marine Layer Pod. Well worth your time. It's funny, about 30 seconds total between Bryce Miller and Taylor Trammell, but it's a good chuckle. It's a good chuckle. And Logan Gilbert, also a good wedding planner, apparently.
Big Chipotle guy at his wedding, apparently, according to Bryce Miller. Again, guys, this is the stuff you're not going to find just listening to press conferences. We're trying to bridge the gap here, get to know these players a little bit, and I'll give you guys another little spoiler too. We're trying to get some of these guys on the podcast. Yeah, big spoiler. We want some players on the podcast. But you know what? An idea behind this is we're trying to show these guys with these questions. Not only is it fun, but, we're not sitting here trying to dig inside information out of them. We're just trying to get to know them and have some fun. And we're trying to show them if we can do that in 30-second intervals, and we could do it on a podcast with them too. So fingers crossed. It's all a process here, but we are certainly working to get some players on, and hopefully this is another step toward that.
Building trust 30 seconds at a time. It takes some of these writers years to build these relationships with these players. And we're just, we're we're new on the block, so we gotta we're working our way in. But I'm proud of all the work we've done. Great job to you for being at the ballpark. You've only been at the ballpark 4 days and already got an interview with the player. I mean, like, think about that. 4 days.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it, buddy. Well, again, we're trying. Hopefully, as time goes on, we'll start to get more and more. Hey, the real test is if I can ever get Jared for 30 seconds, and can I keep my composure when he's there? That's going to be
you went to J school. You better be able to keep your composure.
No, I'm mostly kidding. I would. I just, that'd be a cool one to get.
Hopefully I'd be there too. And right before you're about to interview him, I could whisper in Jared's ear and just give him a, go like this, like give you like a cup check, really catch you off guard.
Oh God.
I think that would be funny.
I wouldn't be able to do the interview then. I'd probably I don't know.
Well, like a fake one.
Oh, I was going to say, I'd probably fall to my knees all of a sudden or something.
Well, no, I don't need Jared to sucker punch you on camera. I'm not trying to shed that kind of bad light on him. I just think personally it'd be funny because, we got the whole Jared kind of get, but I know the real white whale for you to talk to is Dylan Moore. I mean, that's a long-term project. That's like, Dylan, man, I believed in you and no one else did.
Oh, if he's ever down, if he's ever around for a little mini mic interview, we'll try and grab him. But hey, first and foremost, get yourself healthy and get back because the Mariners do need you. Speaking of
he's not even back on a rehab assignment yet.
No, I think he's still down in Arizona. I think he's still trying to get right and get back healthy. But speaking of the Mariners here, let's get to our 3 storylines. First one, TJ, I think this is the headline of the last week. Strikeouts on this team are through the roof right now.
They have a strikeout problem. It is bad. It's getting a little frustrating to watch. They currently, if you just want to look at the raw numbers, they are excuse me while I burp, the second highest strikeout rate, tied for the second highest strikeout rate in baseball. They're only behind the Giants in terms of strikeout rate. And if you look at just the last 2 weeks, as a team, they're striking out 28% of the time. That is a recipe for failure. Every single time. Recipe for failure. You cannot go to the plate over a quarter of your times and strike out and be a successful offensive team. It just cannot happen. We just watched the game here tonight. We're sitting here recording on Monday, following Monday's game. 9th inning, 3 consecutive strikeouts. Not even a glimmer of pressure put on the Rangers bullpen. It just kind of irks you because we expected the team to strike out, Lyle, but they're not doing the other things alongside striking out that would make a team more valuable.
They're not. And strikeouts are a part of baseball now. Strikeouts are up. They're always going to be up because pitching's just that much better and the stuff is that ridiculous. That being said, you cannot strike out this much and have success. You just can't do it. You look up and down this lineup with the starters. Ty France is striking out under 20% of the time. That's Ty France. He doesn't strike out. He makes a lot of contact. Everybody else in the starting lineup is striking out over 20% of the time. I mean, Teoscar's through the roof. He's striking out over 30% of the time. He's right up around 33%. Gino, Jared, Cal, and Julio are all hovering right around the 30% mark. Even J.P. Crawford and Colton Wong, 2 guys that pride themselves on making a lot of contact and not swinging and missing a lot, they're well up over their career averages because both those guys are almost always under 20% per season in terms of their strikeout rate. They're both over it right now. Everybody is swinging and missing way too much and way over their career average.
You can cancel out a lot of strikeouts by doing a couple of things. You can walk a bunch. They are not as high up on the leaderboards in terms of walk rate as they were last year. Last year, they were 3rd in baseball in walks. This year, they are not. You can also balance it out by hitting for a bunch of power. They are bottom half of the league in power, like overall. So if you look at isolated slugging, they are 18th. If you look at it weighted on-base average, which again weights the difference between a single, double, triple, and home run, they are 23rd in baseball. You cannot mix the combination of not collecting extra base hits and not driving in runs on top of striking. You cannot have not great contact on top of too many strikeouts. It is an awful combination, and it is a huge reason why the Mariners have really struggled to score some runs over the past few weeks. I mean, you cannot keep the lineup churning if you're getting all these guys to strike out of the plate. It is among the most frustrating things to watch, especially Teoscar. 33% strikeout rate, 2.8% walk rate. This was your premier offensive addition this offseason. Premier. And he's running a 33-2 strikeout rate to walk rate. That, like, you can look up any hitter in baseball history. Like, there wouldn't be a single probably above average hitter that ran those two numbers. It is physically impossible.
It's just too many strikeouts. How else can we say it? You cannot swing and miss this much. And it's going to have to come down over time. I think it will. But right now, yeah, it's incredibly frustrating to watch because you just talked about it. Look how far down the totem pole they are in isolated power. This is the lineup that's supposed to thrive on hitting the long ball. JP, Colton Wong, those guys don't have a ton of power. Most of this lineup is supposed to hit the baseball over the fence. And they're not even at league average doing so right now.
And if they don't, they won't be a successful offensive team. It's pretty simple, right? The strikeouts either need to drastically come down or they need to hit for a lot more power. Otherwise, the recipe's not going to work with whatever they got. Still a lot of season left, but the early results have not been good. And it's not like they've exactly faced murderer's row of pitchers either. They've had some, think back to the A's series this week. I mean, just too many strikeouts against the A's series, I think, and then the Blue Jays series especially, where they struck out, I believe, 42 times in 3 games. Just can't, you can't do that. You can't do that. So that's something you're going to have to keep an eye on. I'm sure people are well aware of the fact they strike out way too much. Just too uncompetitive too often. Our second storyline this week plays off of the broader strikeout total. We're not necessarily worried about Julio Rodriguez, but he has been in a slump for what we've seen in his brief time in the major leagues. We haven't seen this yet. We haven't seen this version of Julio, and it's pretty frustrating to watch alongside the rest of the offense.
Every star goes through slumps. Mike Trout goes through slumps. You're seeing Juan Soto get off to a pretty bad start here in 2023. It happens, right? But the fact that this team's motor is Julio Rodriguez. When he goes, the team goes. And when he's struggling the way he has the last 2 weeks, we've seen the results be pretty up and down. And a lot of it has to do with his strikeout rate. I mean, first off, he's just chasing too many pitches. He's ranking in the 17th percentile of baseball in chase rate. I mean, that's really not great. That's lower than it was last year for him. He's just swinging and missing a lot. It's a lot of breaking balls off the zone. And we just haven't seen this. Again, he strikes out a decent amount. That's part of his game. But this much chase is something we haven't seen.
I'll push back on that a tiny bit. If you go click between his 2 Savant pages this year and last year, there's pretty similar among most measurables. All right, let's look at this. Last year, 16th percentile in whiff rate, 19th percentile in chase rate, 20th percentile in strikeout rate. Now let's go to this year. 28th percentile in whiff rate, better. 17th percentile in chase rate, 2 points worse. 24th percentile in K rate, better. Those are just a couple things. The main thing I think for Julio this year on a purely rate basis, we could go in and dissect all of his at-bats and see where he could do better in each at-bat. Sure thing. That's great, but we don't have time to do it in this segment. His expected stats for most part across the board are at the same level or better than they were last year. Believe it or not, that is the case. If you go check his Baseball Savant page, it's pretty similar across the board. If you look at his expected batting average, his expected slugging percentage, his xWOBA, which is quality of contact, pretty similar across the board. The one thing that he's really struggling with this year, which was his moneymaker last year, is fastballs. He's stunk against fastballs this year. Easily his worst pitch across the board. I'll debut a new stat here, Lyle. You ready? Ready for this? I know we love our stats here on this podcast. So I'm going to use this Fangraph stat, which is not new. It is called weighted runs above average, which, as it sounds, is essentially measuring how good you are against a pitch. For example, Julio against fastballs last year, that was his best pitch against. He was plus 16.5 against fastballs. Easily the best pitch he would hit against across any pitch that he was throwing last year. This year, fastballs are his worst. He is at negative 3.7 weighted runs above average against fastballs this year. And all of his other pitches against are all about probably tracking towards where they were last year, like normal. So he's been just as good, I'd say, against all sorts of breaking pitches and just atrocious against fastballs. Like that is, I think it's as simple as that.
And a lot of those fastballs are coming inside. I think pitchers are starting to learn a little bit of a hole that he currently has in his game where he seems to struggle with fastballs in on the hands, because that's where he seems to be getting attacked a lot these last couple weeks. Now, look, you're right that in the grand scheme of things, his strikeout numbers and swing and miss numbers aren't that different. What I was really trying to get at with that is the chase. And okay, it's a little bit lower, but it's lower. And the amount that it's occurred in the last 2 weeks is a lot. He has chased a lot of breaking balls out of the zone. Now, the fact the whiff rate is a little bit better this year is a positive sign. But we've also seen in the last week, he's making more contact, but it's leading to a lot of balls in the dirt that have turned into double plays. So, grand scheme of things, yes, we're not worried. Do we think Julio's going to end the year with an OPS over 7 or under 700? Of course not. But when the team needs to win games early, right now, early in the year, he's struggling. And as a result, the team's struggling a little bit.
And you think about this as a lineup construction, like lineups construction wise, he's your leadoff hitter. He's been your leadoff hitter all year, and he's like just not doing much with the ball at all. So when your leadoff hitter's not getting on base and not making most of the opportunities, by the way, the bottom of the order has been getting on in front of him a bunch, and he has not been able to do anything with that. So the biggest thing in summary, Julio is not doing damage with pitches he did most of his damage against last year, and that needs to change for him. And the other thing with him, we coming into this 2023 season expected improvement across the board for Julio, especially with chasing out of the strike zone, especially with swinging and missing at breaking pitches and, continuing to crush fastballs. We haven't seen that yet. That's a real fact, that improvement factor has not been there through the first month and change of the season. And for the Mariners to take that next step, he has to do the same thing.
I will give him credit on this. In the Astros series this weekend, on Friday and Saturday, he hit 4 balls that were 100 miles an hour or harder, and none of them went for hits. So yes, we've seen him strike out a decent amount. We've seen some double plays, but it's not like he's never squaring up the ball. Again, like there's been some games where he looks a little lost, and that happens to players from time to time, right? They just get overmatched. But there are a lot of games where he's gotten a little bit unlucky too. His BABIP is not incredibly high right now. So there's plenty of reasons to believe that this is all going to be put in the rearview mirror here in the coming weeks. But again, the point we're more trying to make is no, we're not that worried about Julio. It's just that right now when they need to win games, it's just in a little bit of a scuffle right now.
They need him and Jared. If they really want to start chugging offensively, like him and Jared at the same time, just catch fire. Just think of the possibilities if they're both able to consistently put bat on ball together at the same time. That's what we've been dreaming about for years, is for the two of them to do that at the same time. And they really haven't been able to do that so far, not in synchrony to do that together. It doesn't help. The rest of the lineup hasn't really been there to bail out Julio. It's essentially only been Jared.
Yeah, the middle of that order really has to step up. I mean, Gino's not hitting for much power right now. Teoscar, we just talked about it, has to strike out a lot less. They need Cal to be Cal. Again, we've seen spurts of it, but he hasn't hit his stride yet either. I'm going to throw you this one question, though, because I've seen some discourse about it on Twitter. Would you actually move Julio out of the leadoff spot? My answer is no, I wouldn't.
Would you rather put JP? Where are we sliding? Or are we putting him at 5, move JP up to leadoff.
Could you really slide Julio down that far, though? I don't know. Like that's my thing. If you're going to move him all the way down, where are you going to put him? I mean, are you going to put Teoscar and Gino up higher in the lineup? Because, again, those guys are struggling right now, too. I understand people's worry with Julio, and there's been some talk like, oh, let Jared hit leadoff for now because he's the one that has been putting together the best at bats, and that's fair. But I just think in due time here, Julio's going to put this all behind him.
How many more weeks of struggles before you'd actually consider that? Because at some point, you do have to start producing. Not that he doesn't.
I'll give it another 2 weeks. Let's call it that. I believe in 2 weeks he'll turn it around.
Yeah. But in 2 weeks, if he continues to scuffle, I mean, you can't have your leadoff hitter doing that. Like it's pretty plain and simple. And JP Crawford, for as much discourse as that position and he got this offseason, his like offensive profile right now is perfect for batting leadoff. I mean, it is just perfect for it, for that spot. Walking, not striking out a whole bunch. Even like you said, his strikeout rate's up a little bit, but he's walking a lot and he's making really solid contact. So, I don't know if I would necessarily hate that decision.
To be fair to JP, he's crushing fastballs right now. I'm not saying he's hitting them out of the yard, but we talked about his run value against fastballs this offseason and how he's really struggled against them over his career. He's crushing fastballs right now. So that is a welcome sign. So sure, if at some point you decide to move Julio out of the one spot for the time being, you do have somebody to put there. I would just pump the brakes on that for now.
I agree. Yeah. Let's get to our third storyline of the week. Lyle, let's get to a little bit more of a positive note. We've seen 2 Bryce Miller starts, and he was really, really, really impressive. When we recorded last week, we had yet to actually see him pitch. Now we've seen him pitch twice. Man, that was fun to watch from the righty.
This has been ridiculous. I mean, you look back at Logan Gilbert and George Kirby's first 2 starts, and Kirby had that unbelievable start in his debut, which actually at time of recording, I think it's a year ago today that Kirby debuted.
Yeah, you're right. It was. Yep.
That he spun that gem against the Rays. His second start was more up and down, and Logan's first couple starts were up and down. Bryce Miller just buzzsawed through the world champs in his second start. I mean, check this out for Bryce Miller. He's got 1 walk and 15 strikeouts in his first 2 starts.
Ready for a couple of Alex Mayer stats?
Oh, I'm always ready for Alex Mayer stats, who, by the way, that's another person we hope to get on this podcast. If you don't know who he is, go follow him on Twitter because he'd be a perfect guest because he's a baseball nerd like we are.
He works for the Mariners stats and information department. The stats he'll throw out, like the ones I'm about to list, he does this for every single game. So Bryce Miller is the first pitcher in Major League history with a sub-1 ERA, 15 strikeouts, and equal to or less than a walk over a pitcher's first 2 career games. Pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Bryce Miller is the third pitcher in MLB history with 10 strikeouts and no walks in his debut, joining Johnny Cueto and Steven Strasburg. Pretty good. Strasburg with probably arguably the best debut of all time, so that's pretty good company.
I would agree. No complaints here.
So let's here's something I want to dive into a little bit with Bryce Miller. Let's look at really the profile of how he has attacked hitters on the mound so far. He is thrown fastballs 70% of the time in 2 starts. I will note, I went and I checked the pitch percentage leaderboards. There's not a single starter that has thrown more fastballs more often than Bryce Miller did in his first 2 starts. Across the league, all the guys who have thrown that many fastballs are all relievers. And Bryce Miller's sitting there at 70% 4-seam fastballs. And on those fastballs, Lyle, he has thrown 66 of them that a batter has swung at. It has resulted in 1 single total against his fastball this year when he throws it 70% of the time.
And they're hitting .033 against it. To throw a fastball at that much volume, to just give up the 1 hit, .033 batting average, that's nuts. I mean, we've heard how good this fastball was supposed to be. You've heard multiple people on this show talk about it might be the best fastball in the minors. I mean, it might not be long before it's up there for best fastball in the majors. Check this out. He's made 2 starts. His run value on that fastball already, -5. -5 in 12 innings.
What Bryce does so well, like he has such a high spin fastball, and it's not the gyro spin. It's an active spin. So like he was spinning the ball 2,700 RPMs at his peak on Sunday. Like that's elite level of fastball spin. And when it spins that much, it fights against the force of gravity, makes it almost seem like the ball is rising, and guys continue to just swing under it. He's throwing the pitch down the middle, and guys are still struggling to even put a barrel on it. And here's a fun comp. I forget if the comp was made on this podcast or we saw it on Twitter. I think it might have been Joe Doyle. Shout out Joe Doyle, first guest on the podcast. We're going to have to get him back on soon, probably around draft time, because he's awesome. But he kept throwing around this comp, which eventually proved itself statistically. So we know how good Spencer Strider was last year, Lyle, with his fastball, which is a top 2-3 fastball in all of baseball. Profiles very, very similar to Bryce Miller's fastball. Check this out. Most strikes thrown in a 2023 Major League Baseball game with 10 inches of drop or less, aka a fastball that fights against gravity and seems like it goes up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these are Spencer Strider, and the other one is Bryce Miller. It's pretty good.
You're talking about Strider being good last year. He might be better. He might be even better this year. I think he is better this year. And yeah, he's a guy that basically throws 2 pitches for the most part. So to see Miller do that and get compared with Strider, yeah.
And it makes you think, like, if Spencer Strider can have a fastball with that kind of profile that's that good, that's that hard to square up, and Bryce Miller profile is very similar to it, then how much of a second pitch does Bryce Miller need? More than a second pitch, if that's the case? Because if Strider can do it, and people can't hit his fastball, and people can't hit Bryce's fastball, well, Lane's like, well, maybe they don't. Not as much. Maybe he doesn't need to spend as much time on that.
I think you do need a second pitch. I don't think you can just throw one pitch. I mean, like, right. Strider throws a slider. That's pretty good. I think Miller needs the second pitch, and we've talked about that he throws 2 different sliders, and if he absolutely needs it, at the back of his arsenal, he has a changeup. But I think you're going to see him throw a lot of fastballs. Now, his next start's against the Tigers. They hit high fastballs terribly, so it's probably another start that favors him, especially since it's in a pitcher's park like Detroit. The start you should really circle, if everything stays on schedule, he will face the Braves in Atlanta. Now, the Braves kill high fastballs. So that'll be a real test for Miller to see how he does, 1, against a lethal lineup like that, but 2, a team that thrives on hitting high fastballs.
And how would he adjust against that if a team's actually starting to square up his fastball? Because as we said, no one squared up his fastball, so he had no reason to go away from it. What if guys put a barrel or 2 on his fastball? How is he going to adjust to that? So here's some stuff numbers on his other pitches, Lyle. So they meant this blurb here mentions, he's throwing his fastball 70% of the time, but Fangraph Stuff Plus has his sweeper, which again is more of his loopy breaking, which I believe it was named the Cannonball slider, has 119 Stuff Plus, like well above average. His cutter slider, which is like the shorter, tighter break that Chef talked about last week. Go check out episode 27 with Matt Scheffler last week. Talked a little bit about these 2 pitches. His shorter sliders at a 114 Stuff Plus. Those are both quality above average secondary pitches. His changeup's at 138, but he only threw 2 of them, so I don't think that's quite a good measuring stick there. But his 2 sliders both measure as decently above average to go along with a 137, 135. I wrote it down here. I think it was 137 Stuff Plus on his fastball. So you have a 137 fastball, and then a 114 short slider and a 119 sweeper. That's quality stuff from Bryce Miller, and makes you think, yeah, okay. So in terms of pure stuff, the secondary stuff is there.
For those who don't know what Stuff Plus is, it basically just measures how nasty your stuff is. Chris Langan talked about it with us a while back. That's another interview you can check out. But it's measured in the same way that WRC Plus is, or OPS Plus, in the sense that 100 is league average. Anything above that is percentile above, or below that's percentile below. So TJ just mentioned his fastball has a Stuff Plus rate of 137. So he's 37% above league average with his fastball, and he's above average with the other pitches too. So that signals that this stuff will play at the big league level. We've seen it through 2 starts, and it seems like, at least to some extent, it's going to be pretty efficient as time goes on too. Okay. Can I throw, oh, go ahead. I'll let you go, and then I'll throw this
I
out.
was going to say one last thing from this blurb. They did note that he wasn't really getting many swings and misses on a secondary, which we could see. This blurb did note that his arm angle was changing a little bit with his breaking balls, which definitely, like, big league hitters will pick up on that right away, and they know what's coming. So that's more of a tunneling issue.
Yeah, there will be hills and valleys in his rookie season. It's natural for rookie pitchers. I'm sure there will be starts where he gets hit around a decent amount. But you know what? I think what we've seen in his first 2 outings is we sat here on this podcast and talked about, what are they going to do without Robbie Ray? Do they have to go make a trade elsewhere? Something like that. Well, again, we'll see how the rest of the year plays out, but it seems like Miller may just slot right in and pick up right where Robbie Ray left off, because he's looked awesome. Okay, I've got to throw this one stat out there before we wrap up this Bryce Miller talk. You haven't by chance looked at his ERA plus, have you?
It is a small sample.
No, I know. And I was going to preface it with that this is 2 starts and it has no chance to stay like this.
Can I guess it?
But just looking at it, I was going to ask you, again, we're just having some fun early on, but it did pop up. It did pop out to me. So I'll let you guess.
533.
That's actually
500.
close.
Is it kind of close?
577. So you were still too low.
Wow.
And for those who don't know what ERA plus is, again, same thing we just talked about with Stuff Plus, with OPS Plus, with WRC Plus. This one measures how good of a pitcher you are. It takes a lot of things into account. Hundreds league average, anything above, percentile above, anything below, percentile below. So through 2 starts, Bryce Miller has been 477% better than the league average pitcher. Now, again, there is a negative % chance that stays anywhere near that number all year. It's not going to. But it's still fun to look at through 2 starts and say, oh, yeah, he's been that good so far.
To be fair, he's only faced 1 big league lineup.
Well, that's true. He basically faced a high A lineup in his debut against a crowd that was 3 times smaller than what he was seeing in Double A. But
so we did cash that in from last week, where yes, there was absolutely no chance the crowd in Oakland was bigger than the one he faced in Arkansas the previous week.
But point being, again, take the ERA plus thing with many, many grains of salt. I just thought that was a fun thing to throw out through 2 starts. But what it all concludes is you should be really excited about Bryce Miller going forward, because he can make a real impact to this team.
100%. And hey, I thought he was going to be in the bullpen. He throws 2 starts. I'm like, you know what? No, he shouldn't be in the bullpen. Just kidding.
I was with you on that. And same thing. I've redacted that take very, very quick. And hey, he likes Chipotle. He wants Chipotle in his wedding. Maybe that's the most important nugget of all.
What are you putting on your plate at that wedding, Lyle, if you swung an invite?
I mean, am I not just getting Chipotle? Am I not making a burrito wrap?
Yeah, but like, what are you putting on there?
Oh, I honestly might go steak and, I mean, I was going to say steak and chicken combo. I don't think I'd combo it. I'd probably go steak.
It's a wedding. Rice. Come on.
What's that?
It's a wedding. Lighten up a little bit.
Oh, okay. So you're saying go steak and chicken in the
yes.
The burrito. Okay, so steak, chicken, rice, pico, probably guac, lettuce. You know, all the good stuff, right?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Is that what you're getting?
Sounds pretty good. Yeah, it's probably along the lines of what I'm getting. Yeah, there's they don't charge you for guac at a wedding, thankfully.
No. So maybe Zach Greinke will be there.
Ooh, I'd be down.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, we've got a cool interview coming up with Andrew Urrutia. He is another longtime friend of mine. He's a couple years younger than we are. I went to high school with him, grew up playing baseball with him, known him forever, and he has created a really cool business of his own where he's now the creator of a cleats brand. And it's not just some cleats brand. Oh, in his spare time, he likes to kind of sit around, make some designs. No, he's designing cleats for professional athletes, including a ton of high caliber and high level Major League Baseball players. And it's all over his social media pages. So along with that, he's doing cleat stuff. He also painted a Julio Rodriguez mural this past weekend down at the City Connect event at Pike Place. He's a phenomenal artist. He did a great job on that. And we sat and talked with him about it because, look, we've had some great people on. We've loved all our guests. It's a little bit of a different perspective, but a pretty interesting one because we kind of get away from the usual media player side of things.
I really enjoyed it. I wonder what is he going to make a mural of what do you think he's putting on your mural? He's painting one of you. Is he putting an L-Dub logo on there?
Oh, I wonder if he would. Well, maybe somewhere in the corner. Although I was going to say if he made a Marine Layer podcast mural, I don't know if the purple would fit in there. You need more teal.
No, it wouldn't. We'd put the Ballard Beaver logo in there, though.
Well, what color is that?
Red.
Oh,
Need some contrast.
What, so you're putting red with teal and navy blue, but not purple?
Can find a way to mix them in.
Okay. Point being, Train, which is his nickname, Andrew, is a phenomenal artist. I mean, again, this is not just some random cleats company. He's got thousands of followers on social media. He's partnered with Stadium. He's done this for years now, and he's killing it. So we got to sit and talk with him about it. It was really cool, and we'll let you guys hear it. So with that, let's get to our interview with Andrew Urrutia. Welcome on Andrew Urrutia. He's the creator of TrainKicks cleats. He was also painting a Julio Rodriguez mural this weekend during Mariners City Connect weekend. Train, it's great to have you on. For those who don't know, okay, that's your nickname is Train. Why don't you tell us, how did you get the nickname?
I mean, man, you and I both grew up in Kirkland playing baseball, and I'm sure you know Mike Wood. When I was 11 in Little League, I'm pretty sure Mike Wood gave me that nickname, and it kind of just stuck ever since. So I guess it's been 12 years with the nickname, so just been rocking with it.
I mean, I'll tell you what, I think everything happens for a reason, right? And look where the nickname's gotten you now. Because I mean, Andrew Kicks might have worked, but TrainKicks, like, that's a real name, dude.
Yeah, and I think, when I first made the name, and, it goes for a lot of companies when you first make the name of the company, sometimes it sounds stupid. At first, TrainKicks sounds stupid, but I think it's one of those things where you make the name. A name doesn't define you, and I think, it goes for a lot of things.
That's something you came
around it, yeah.
That's something you came up with on your. Did anyone suggest, hey, that would actually be a good name for it, or did someone have to push you toward it, or you on your own were like, yeah, this is it?
I think it was just kind of I don't know if it was a temporary name, but it was just an easy my name's Train, my nickname is Train. Then I'm gonna try to sell shoes, so I'll call it Kicks. So just TrainKicks, and then I just I just kept that.
Okay, so we want to get into your entire cleats brand here in just a couple minutes. But before we do that, you were just painting a Julio Rodriguez mural this weekend out at Pike Place for Mariners City Connect weekend. You were brought on and hired to do that. Can you take us through some of the weekend? Well, first off, I mean, how did they find you and how did they bring you on to do this event?
So they reached out to me a week and a half before the event. And basically, it was the Mariners director of marketing and special events, reached out saying that I had been recommended to the Mariners by a former vice president of marketing for the Mariners, who is my neighbor. His name is Bill Knutson. He, we've been really good friends, my whole life growing up there in that neighborhood. So he actually reached out to the Mariners a few months ago, recommending me. He sent them a lot of my work. So they kind of reviewed that. And leading up to the event, Fanatics reached out to the Mariners and they said, hey, we typically have a live artist or muralist in every city. Do you guys know of anyone you could bring in? And, luckily it was great timing with, my neighbor recommending me because, the director of marketing for the Mariners right now said, hey, yeah, we have a guy in mind who, does this type of work. And at that point, they reached out to me. And so I was super, excited to see that email for sure.
You can go check out the piece. I believe it's on your Instagram, right? Andrew.u. You can go see at
Yes.
least a little snippet of it. It's a really cool piece of art. And I gotta say, I mean, there's some pressure there because there's some pretty high profile Mariners there, around you, watching you paint that. And obviously, for a mural like this, you get one chance to paint it, and you absolutely nailed it. That thing is awesome. Is there anywhere where people can get like a super clear visual of it and see actually like the full painting of what you did?
Yeah, I was planning to post it today on my art account, TrainKicks. Um, but yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it was a super stressful week leading up to it because I there's some things I didn't really like express to the Mariners. I kind of just said yes, I'll do it, but there's some things I've never done before. I've never painted on canvas. I've never painted live in front of people, with a very small time constraint. And then, I had to use a specific type of paint because we were on the water and, there's some environmental issues or whatever. So there's just a lot of factors that made it really tough and challenging on me. And on top of that, having to paint a realistic portrait of Julio is, something else I had to worry about in terms of like, laying that out because it's hard to get proportions right, especially when, people are standing behind you the whole time. But, in the actual moment, I didn't feel any stress because I felt right back in the zone. I think I was just overthinking the whole week, but it was super fun having Mariners executives, Root Sports people, Fanatics people, as well as just all the Mariners fans that came through to kind of like stop by and talk to me for a little bit. It was a really fun experience for sure.
How much pre-planning goes into something like this?
Um, So, like I said, like I've never done something like this, like a live portrait on canvas. So I'd say the next time I do this, there'll be a lot less planning. But I will say that I spent maybe like 8 hours in total on Photoshop. I spent, maybe like 4 or 5 hours, getting materials and supplies together. I had to build my own easel, put the canvas together, buy all the stuff. So maybe like 15 hours of prep, and then the actual work, the actual painting was 5 hours. Um, but yeah, it definitely was a long time. But as you go on and do things more times, you can cut down the prep time for sure.
Here's the real question. Did you have any hecklers out at Pike Place this weekend?
Well, luckily I was able to have close to like it was around 20 friends and family members that came out to see me, and I did have a couple boys come out, and during the early stage of it when it was just the yellow outline of the portrait, and they started laughing and clowning on me, saying it looks like Jordan Poole on the Warriors. And it looked like Jordan Poole for a little bit, but I told them, hey, come back in an hour, and then we'll be rocking with Julio.
Here's the follow-up to that is I saw at the end, you're splashing the white dots on the end of the painting, like around the Julio piece. Is there any pressure when you're doing that where you're like, okay, I better not spill this white paint on Julio. I've got to get it right in the right spot.
Yeah, yeah. There's some like sequences of moments where you can't mess it up because you got like one shot. That one, the paint splatter part is not too bad because if I actually mess it up badly, I can just paint over it with blue, which is a nice thing about canvas. Like the thing about shoes is that shoes are way harder to paint, like way harder. So like if I did this on a pair of shoes, it might have taken like 8 hours instead. Because there's certain things that you can't undo on shoes, like painting on fabric. You can't take like blue paint off of white fabric. Think that there's a little more pressure with shoes. On canvas, it wasn't much pressure in terms of making a mistake that you can't fix. It was pretty chill in that sense.
So I think what you're telling us is that All-Star Week rolls around, you're painting a mural somewhere.
And I mean, I don't want to talk too soon, but I'm hoping the Mariners can reach out again for that.
Well, like,
Definitely.
what's the scale? Like, what scale do you think you'd be comfortable doing? If, like, actually, because like that's something that's probably going to happen when All Star Week rolls around. There are going to be some unique things, All Star related things, that are going to pop up around the city, and it might be you they want to paint a 20-foot wall of Julio or Jared or whoever makes the All Star team or both, right? And that could be you, and you could be painting someone who's 4 times as large as you.
Yeah, so MLB will be putting on that event. So like Fanatics put on this event, and what Fanatics has always done for the City Connect events is pretty much roughly the same size canvas, with an artist doing a similar type of City Connect thing. What MLB usually does during All-Star Week is they actually bring in a couple like shoe customizers to like customize cleats live at MLB Park. You know what I'm talking about? How they're gonna kind
Mm-hmm.
of create a whole area for activities and stuff.
Yeah.
So they
I think it'll
usually
be the
have,
convention center.
yeah, yeah. So they usually have a couple artists painting live custom cleats, and I I've not been invited in the past to do that. They've kind of usually had their own. I don't really know how they've found people, but I'm hoping that when they come here, maybe I could try to squeeze my way in. Saying I'm a local artist and a local customizer might be good for the event. I don't. We'll see. We really don't know yet.
You know what, Train? I'll tell you this. If you get invited to paint something for All-Star Week, you can let us know. We'll come around with our phone and our mic or whatever, and
Follow
we'll gas you up and support you or whatever. So at the very least, you'll have a couple people there that'll be
up.
promoting your work and kind of getting the ball rolling for you.
Yeah.
So then, hey, maybe more people kind of flock over. Hopefully we have a little bit of social media pull by that time where we can get some people over to your stuff. But yeah, if you get invited to paint something during All-Star Week, that'd be awesome. So let's keep our fingers crossed for that, right?
Yeah, it'd be super cool. I'm definitely gonna make a bunch of cleats for players for All-Star Week too. Um, but yeah, that's a little different because that's kind of just doing it in my own space and then delivering at the hotel or whatever. But yeah, live art would be pretty sick to do.
Yeah. So let's get into your cleats brand a little bit here.
Mhm.
TrainKicks, which if you're a listener and you're sitting here thinking, oh, we're just having some guy on who likes to design some cleats for fun. No, like Andrew's got a huge following. If you go on his social media page, you'll see he has thousands of followers. He's sponsored by Stadium. He makes them for handfuls and handfuls of MLB players, and his art is awesome. So let's take it all the way back to when this thing started. What inspired you to start this whole thing?
Me and Lyle went to the same high school, so Lake Washington High School in Kirkland. We both played for the Kangs, and I guess my junior year, I was really excited to get out there, and I also kind of saw on social media that the custom cleats were a thing. It was starting to be a thing at that time, and I thought like, hey, like what if I bought a pair of Jordans and painted them purple for our school? And so I did that. I thought it would be crazy. Uh, and I started making more and more pairs for myself. I did some for teammates and then for guys in other teams. And then I guess slowly over the course of 2 years, I was able to reach out to the Mariners on social media. I actually reached out to all the players on the roster at that time in 2019. I got 7 players to respond, and then I closed the deal with 3 players. It was Domingo Santana, Matt McGill, and Brandon Brennan, who ended up ordering at that time. So those were my first major league clients. I consider Domingo Santana my very first client, but that was surreal, being able to work with the Mariners at that time. And then yeah, ever since kind of just been keeping it going, meeting new players and doing some projects for them.
Okay, so if people still aren't sold on you here, if people still aren't sold on your cleats brand, you've got a trip planned this week. Why don't you tell people a little bit about what you've got happening this weekend?
Oh man, yeah. So the plan is that so Miguel Cabrera ordered 8 pairs of cleats from me, and the plan is that I'm supposed to receive them today, but I'm gonna paint maybe a couple pairs by Friday, and on Friday, me and my friend are going to fly to Detroit, and through Stadium Custom Kicks, we can actually get some media passes. So we'll kind of hopefully get on the field and everything, meet Miggy. It should be a fun weekend because for me and for a lot of other baseball fans, I'm sure Miggy's you know a staple of your childhood baseball fandom. So yeah, he's a legend. So I can't even. I feel like I'll be at a loss for words. If I see him in person.
Can you take us behind the scenes and just tell our listeners how long does it take to truly customize a pair of cleats? I mean, where do you start? Like, how are you ordering these cleats in? And then what kind of, like, you probably have a parameter of what design you're going to go off of based on what the player wants. But how's the process of getting that stuff on the cleat in the way they want and the way you think is a good job?
Yeah, it's actually I'll try to run through it as fast as I can, but yeah, it is a very intricate and complicated uh process for a lot of people to understand. It's such a niche industry. It's kind of like a weird little thing. Like I'm like, no, I'm not selling cleats. I'm selling a service. But so here's how it usually goes. We'll be talking with the client, and then they'll be saying like what shoe model they need, and then we might make some mock-ups, and we'll basically figure out the design. And then at that point, they place an order, and either they'll ship the cleats to me, or I can order the cleats for them, and then just add the cost of the cleats to what they pay me. Um, and so yeah, at that point, I'll get the cleats in my hands. They'll generally take between 5 to 10 hours. It's a pretty big range, but it depends on the design. Um, but yeah, so I'll have the cleats, and the reason that this is such a it's like a hard thing to do. You don't see as many customizers out there because it's hard to make the paint not crack off. And so for 6 years, I've really developed a refined process of making it durable, so guys can wear it multiple games and it lasts long. Um, so basically, I'll go through my prep process of basically stripping down the cleats, sanding them, doing whatever I need to do with chemicals and all that uh, for an hour or two, and then I'll get it taped up, masking tape, and then start painting it, whatever design, and then it depends on what the design is. It'll take a few hours, and then once that's all done, um, take all the scraps off, put the laces back on, spray finisher, pack it back up, take pictures, and then send it back out to the client. So yeah, that whole process will take like 5 to 10 hours.
And these cleats are not meant to last longer than a few games.
No, no, they can last a really long time, but
Oh,
um,
that's
at,
good.
yeah, yeah, at the same, like I've had players like wear them like almost every game, but Uh, the thing about custom cleats is they'll never last as long as the factory as a just a regular cleat. It can't, because there's a layer of paint over it. Like it's just not physically possible for that to be more durable. But my job is to make it as durable as possible. And if you I guess if you watch the Mariners this season, Jared Kelenic probably in probably more than half the games has been wearing my cleats. And so whenever you see him wearing Jordan 1 cleats, those are made by me. He's got 4 pairs. He's got an all navy pair. He's got the Sunday pair, which seems to be everybody's favorite. It's cream, yellow, and blue. He's got a white pair and a gray pair. But those, I've been looking at pictures and videos. Those seem to be holding up really well. And as you can see, he wears them multiple days, and they still look fine. There might be a tiny paint cracking here and there, but you can't see that on TV.
Okay, you bring up Jared Kelnick. I always knew you were good at designing cleats, and I knew you had made some for a handful of players over the years. The first time I realized that your whole brand was totally blowing up, aside from having a good social media following and all, was so Jared Kelnick for a while was making a lot of YouTube videos. And he was trying to give people a little bit of a peek behind the scenes about his life. And he made a video right before he debuted. And in the video, his whole group of people, they drive up to a house, they get a box, they then go back to his apartment, they open it up, and they had gotten him a gift right before his debut, and it's these just sick teal and navy blue cleats. It's got his number 10 on it, it's got his Waukesha area code on it, it's got all this cool design. And then I look a little closer and I realize, oh, those are Train's cleats. Like, you made those. And everybody was tweeting him out that day. I remember of his debut. I mean, it blew up on social media. What was your reaction to how everybody else kind of reacted to those cleats?
Yeah, it got a ton of social media. Both MLB and Mariners both posted those, on their Instagram and Twitter. The Mariners actually made a whole art. They wrote a whole article about just the cleats, and so that was crazy. All that attention. But in terms of making the cleats, he was the top prospect at the time, and as a Mariners fan, I was so excited to make cleats, for the biggest prospect we've had in 15 years or so. And so I those are one of my favorite cleats, and I put in if I remember correctly, like 15 or 16 hours. Not that it needed that many hours, but I just wanted to make sure these were perfect. Every square millimeter had to be perfect. So went and did that. It was his girlfriend that placed the order for the cleats. So yeah, when she came to pick him up, I was unaware that he was in the car until I saw the YouTube video. And at that point, I was, it was cool that I guess Jared Kelnick technically came to my house, but yeah, never really met him though. Um, Maybe one day.
Were those your favorite cleats you've ever made, or do you have another pair that really sticks out?
Oh, it's so hard because I made like 400 or 500 pairs at this point, but um, those are definitely in the top five. Yeah, it could be my favorite. I'd have to really look back through some. It's definitely top five.
I feel like his reaction has to play a part to it too, because you obviously watched the YouTube video, and when he pulls those cleats out of the box, he's fist pumping. He's talking about how sick they are. He's like, "Those are so clean, dude," or whatever his exact words were. I mean, I feel like his reaction has to play some part in that, right? Along with the fact that you did a great job with the design.
Yeah, it always feels so good when you see like a video of a guy's reaction, or even better if you see a live reaction, and you can really tell that they really like the cleats that they ordered, because it means that they'll probably order again maybe. So yeah, it's great to see reactions, but I guess you get a little tone deaf at times the longer you go. You're a little less starstruck. Still super appreciative of all these guys coming, but it's not as stressful, I guess. Just like the painting thing, the first pair for Domingo Santana, super super like, extremely stressful. But the more you guys you work with, it's another project. Just trying to do your best work for them.
Who else on the Mariners should people look out for to see some of your other work?
Dylan Moore's coming back from injury. I just made him 5 pairs. He'll be rocking those. To be honest, I don't do as many cleats as I used to a couple of years ago because I'm in the heat of my senior year of college. But yeah, there might probably by the end of the season I'll have like maybe like 4 or 5 players that'll probably have my cleats on occasion. But I guess in total, I think I've done cleats for around 20 to 25 Mariners in the past 4 years, which has been just so incredible as a Mariners fan. A Mariners fan above everything. So those clients do mean a little more to me than some of the other guys, unfortunately. Or not. Hate to be biased, but I have to be. Staying true to the blue here. We're on the Marine Layer pod, man.
We're biased. We're the hosts of the podcast.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
biased all the time. It's a Mariners podcast. You can be biased all you want.
Yeah, no, I will not hide it. I am a Mariners fan to the core.
As are we. I mean, we look. We try to be impartial, I should say. But we're all Mariners fans here, so I can't blame you for like getting more excited for these Mariners guys getting excited about your cleats. It's only natural,
Yeah.
especially when you grew up a fan. If I've got one last question for you here as we start to wrap this up. I know as you're graduating, you never know what your life's going to kind of hold going forward. But in a perfect world for you, what do you want to continue to do with TrainKicks and with your whole cleats brand if you wanted to keep growing it?
Yeah, in a perfect world, I want to, keep doing cleats, obviously, but kind of see if I can kind of build something, bigger off that. And I think doing murals and canvas paintings and stuff like that, some live art painting events, that could be a great avenue to pick up, because that actually makes a lot more money than cleats sometimes. If you're working with a big corporation, the invoice will be pretty large usually. So yeah, in a perfect world, kind of just trying to build off the cleats, in a way, but still staying within the scope of sports and all that.
Well, we can't wait to see what you continue to do with it, because I've been a fan of your work forever, and not just because we're friends, because genuinely all your designs are really cool. Clearly players think the same thing. So Train, we appreciate you hopping on with us today. This has been awesome. It's really cool to get a little bit of a different perspective of somebody here on the show. We've had a bunch of media people on, but to do what you're doing is pretty awesome. And we can't wait to see you keep doing it. And hey, let us know if anything happens during All-Star Week, because I would love to stop by and see it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Lyle and TJ. Like this is I actually I have been listening to this podcast while painting cleats. Like all of Dylan Moore's cleats, I painted while listening to this podcast. And even before I was listening before I even told Lyle that. I told Lyle that like less than a week ago, like, oh hey, I've been listening to your podcast recently and it's really good. But yeah, so you guys got to keep up the good work. This is sick, and I'm sure you guys are both gonna go far.
We appreciate it, but I'm glad you could also draw the Dylan Moore inspiration right out of Lyle's voice and put it into the cleats. So
yeah,
he's proud.
Yeah,
Train. I don't know if I've told you, I'm like the world's biggest Dylan Moore fan. So to hear that's full circle right there. Oh yeah.
Also, I want to say you guys have some of the best breakdowns of the analytics and like pulling out the stats that actually matter and the stats that can kind of sway people's opinions on players. I think that is really sick. You guys got to keep that up.
Well, we appreciate it, Trent. We're going to do our best, and we know you're going to keep doing your best. We can't wait to watch you keep killing it.
Awesome. All right. Well, appreciate you having me.
All right. That was a great conversation with Andrew Urrutia, the owner of TrainKicks. Just some awesome designs. Really appreciate Lyle making that connection, and really a different perspective from what we've had on this podcast before. Able to hear a bit of what he does in connection to the Mariners and the city of Seattle. It's great stuff. Again, you want to go find more of his stuff, you can go look at his Instagram at TrainKicks. He's got a lot of his work on there. Okay, Lyle, let's go down on the farm. All right, Lyle, what are you looking at this week?
There's been a couple of promotions, which is much earlier than it was last year. If you go back to 2022, the Mariners were pretty cautious with a lot of their call-ups. It was much later in the season they started to bring guys up. Now here we are sitting in early May. They've made promotions, and probably the most notable one, Jonathan Clase is going up to Double-A. I mean, you're talking about a guy that is 20 years old. He's not even 21. He crushed the Northwest League in Everett. He's getting the call-up. Juan Mercedes is getting the call-up to Double-A. Right-handed pitcher. Also pitcher Jorge Benitez is getting called up to Double-A. Stephen Kolek is going from Double-A to Triple-A. So it's not like it was just one guy. I mean, they're making some real promotion through the system this week, and probably the most notable one being Clase getting the call at just 20 years old to go to Double-A.
Have we given the context yet of which other under 21-year-olds have played significant time in Double-A? Did we say that last week?
I think it's just Julio and Jared, if I'm remembering right. Or was
and
Jared
Tyler O'Neill and
O'Neill. Okay, I was gonna say Jared was 19 in Double-A in 2019. Yeah, he was. Yeah. So it was just those guys.
Three big leaguers, and then Clase. It's pretty cool.
And that means they've got a lot of faith in him. So what Clase turns into moving forward, we don't know. But like we talked about on the last show when we highlighted him, the Mariners are pretty high on this guy, and he's probably got a chance to be a top 100 prospect next year if he really hits the ground running in Double-A.
I'm going to pick another young guy in the system, part of really this young wave of batch. Gabby Gonzalez, now 2 levels down from Clase, down in low A Modesto, but he's the number 7 prospect on the Mariners top 30. And he's really gotten off to a really hot start this year. Besides the fact he's hitting for a good average and he's slugging a decent amount as well. This dude just really does not strike out as well, which is a really good trait after looking at the Mariners lineup the last few weeks. Having a guy in your system who is striking out 12% of the time this year at the lower levels of the minors, is controlling the strike zone well. Doesn't walk a whole bunch, but he does not strike out, hits the ball pretty hard, sprays it around the yard, and is really a speedy, toolsy outfielder that I know, like our friend Jeremy, who works in the Mariners system, is a huge fan of this guy. Thinks he's a stud, and he's having a good week and a good season overall as well.
For those maybe not familiar with strikeout rates like the back of their hand, 12% is really low. You're not going to see many players striking out at a 12% clip. Gabby Gonzalez is doing it, though. Guy makes a ton of contact. People love his power. I think the question with him is just going to be, can he stick in the outfield and can he find a position for himself long-term? Because if he can, that's a bat to dream on. A 19-year-old kid who's crushing it in Modesto and has middle-of-the-order potential.
here's this group he's along with. We're talking about the young group of Mariners bats. It's him, it's Gabby Gonzalez, it's Harry Ford, it's Cole Young, and then Jonathan Clase. That's the group you want to pay attention as. Hey, this is a very young group of hitters, but man, the upside of those guys, and we've talked about now, I think we've covered all of them here in our segments doing On the Farm since the season started. We've covered all of them, and they're all off to really good starts, is what the Mariners really like to see, because above them, there's not much, there's no bats above them. So they're what the Mariners are relying upon, and it's really good to see, all those guys going off to start the season and showcasing all those tools. All very different, too. All very different flavors of hitter, but it's still very impressive to see.
And there's probably another wave of bats even behind those guys. Lazaro Montes, Felnin Celestin, maybe Michael Arroyo. But you're right. The next real wave of bats are the four guys you just highlighted, because they may be a ways away, but they're going to be reinforcements that the Mariners rely on down the road here in 2, 3, 4 years. So just to reiterate what you said, if you're a Mariners fan, pay attention to the guys in the minors and keep tabs on those hitters. It's worth it because they're going to keep shining all year.
Pay attention to them, but these guys, they're good enough where they could honestly get traded. Like, the Mariners will be buyers at this deadline. I would be shocked if all four of those guys are in the system at the end of the year. I would be. As unfortunate as it is, we want all those guys to succeed. I have a tough time seeing all four of those guys staying, unless they're, that they would probably feel more comfortable dealing some of the pitching they have, which would be a little bit more valuable, a little more comfortable giving those guys away a little bit farther away from the big leagues than some of the more immediate help arms that they have higher in the minors. So just a warning, temper yourself.
That's probably right, especially if the Mariners go out and get somebody with real impact. But still, keep an eye on them, because, hey, if you're somebody that's circling a couple of impact bats somewhere across baseball saying, hey, the Mariners should go target those guys, well, then these guys playing well has an impact on that. So just keep some notes. That's all we're saying. Keep some notes. Okay, let's get to our MLB wraparound here. First topic, the Cardinals, TJ. The St. Louis Cardinals, one of the sturdiest franchises in baseball, one of the most historic franchises in baseball. They're not playing like it these days. They have been scuffling, and that's an understatement.
I believe they're playing right now as we're recording this on a Monday. But they are, as of now, with today's outcome not final yet, they are 11-24. They are 3 games worse than the next closest team in the National League. They're not as bad as the Royals. They're not as bad as the A's, but they're pretty bad. And there's this pretty stark difference between the A's, the Royals, and the Cardinals. We're pretty sure the Royals and A's would not be great. The Cardinals are supposed to win arguably the softest division in baseball, the one that probably invests the least amount of money in player capital, the one that you could argue it's just not don't know if I trust all these organizations in here except for the Cardinals. And the Redbirds have been just awful. They have been bad in a number of ways. They're 23rd in ERA. They're the worst base running team in baseball. Nolan Arenado has been ice cold. And maybe the biggest story, Lyle, to come out this week is that they signed prize catcher Wilson Contreras to a 5-year, $87.5 million deal this offseason to replace Yadier Molina. It took them a little over 30 games for them to say, yeah, you're not catching for us anymore. 30 games!
Well, in what world are you signing a guy that's tabbed as a premier catcher to a 5-year deal and then saying, yeah, go play the outfield? Look, I know the main reason they signed him is for his bat, but you know what? He has a good arm. He might not be an elite glove or an elite framer, but he's serviceable back there. There were certainly never any problems with him in Chicago. But now you have all these guys complaining about his catching. You've got the Cardinals trying to make him play a new position on the fly. I mean, what is going on? These guys are usually on top of everything.
They had a summit for his position change. Listen to this tweet from today. Wilson Contreras said Adam Wainwright and Jack Flaherty were part of recent discussions regarding his position shift. He didn't elaborate on what was said during the summit with the front office, coaches, pitchers, and himself. You've got to be kidding me here. First, I get Adam Wainwright's like a legacy guy, but at this point of your career, you can't be having your pitchers you can't have it. Like, that's just kind of absurd. It seems like the pitchers were doing some complaining with Wilson Contreras behind the plate. He's not a great framer, but he's like, by the numbers, an above average catcher for his career. He's +9 defensive runs saved for his career behind the plate. Like, there is good in there. Maybe it won't be great in the future, but I have a hard time believing he is the sole purpose that Cardinals pitchers have been horrible this year.
Who else did they want? They signed the top catcher on the market. Contreras is a bona fide star at the position. These guys are talking about, well, when Yachty was here, we did it differently. Great. Yachty's a legend. He's also retired. He hung it up. He was done with his career, and he had a really good one at that. But there's not many better options out there than Wilson Contreras. Like, I don't know what these Cardinals pitchers want instead.
I don't get, like, how do you not, you can't blame your pitching struggles on a retired catcher leaving. Like, what does that say about your development and your organizational pitching philosophy if one player can send your whole pitching staff off the rails?
Incredible.
Here's another thing for the Cardinals, the front office, to chew on. I mean, are we really now that you like look at this rotation, are you like kind of shocked that a rotation of Miles Mikolas, Jack Flaherty, who by the way has now not been good in about 4 years, Adam Wainwright, Steven Matz, and Jake Woodford are underperforming? Are we surprised?
Their best arm's been Jordan Montgomery, and he's actually been good. That trade so far for the Cardinals is working out. The rest of the staff is not. I'm going to be honest, I liked what the Cardinals were putting out in their rotation on paper when the season started. I guess, look, it's been a long time since Flaherty's been good. You're right. I also just think the pure talent and stuff that he has when he's at the top of his game is peak stuff. And I bought that he was now healthy, and maybe I'm not saying he was going to go win a Cy Young, but I did think he could have a really good season. Mikolas has been pretty sturdy a lot of his career. Again, Montgomery's been good. I thought they would be perfectly serviceable. Well, I was wrong. They have not been, like, at all.
Yeah, it's a disaster. And I was trying to find the quote before we started recording. I couldn't find it. But like, Jack Flaherty got to the point where he was complaining that the pitches called with 2 strikes by Wilson Contreras was all his fault, and he had no control over like what to throw with 2 strikes, which I think is total bogus. Because you know what happens when a pitcher gets a pitch that he doesn't like and doesn't want to throw with 2 strikes? You know what you do? You shake him off. you say no. You say no, and you throw what you want. But apparently that's too hard. So I don't know. I guess it's all Wilson Contreras' fault that, they don't want to shake anyone off. Who knows? It's so puzzling. The fact that the Pirates, who we entering the season thought was probably a bottom 3 organization in baseball, have turned around and stacked a 10-game lead on the Cardinals through a month. It's absurd.
I don't know if this I don't know if this Pirates success is going to last, but the fact that they've created 10 games of space on St. Louis, there's not a bet in the world that had that before the season started.
Also, like, I mentioned it quickly at the beginning, like, where's Nolan? What's he doing?
He's got a 70 OPS plus. What is going on? Look, I know there's guys out there off to slow starts. This guy's done nothing but play both sides of the ball at an elite level throughout his career. He has mashed the ball every single season, and he has played elite defense every single season. He's not hitting right now. And that's something that this team banks on. If he's not hitting, of course they're not going to go anywhere.
His savant page stinks too. It's not like he's getting unlucky. He's been bad. There's a lot of blue on his savant page. Lyle likes to say, on a good savant page, it looks like a nice glass of red Kool-Aid. Nolan Arenado's looks like a glass of blue Kool-Aid. And if that's the case, that's not the territory you want to be in. Like, there's nothing positive to take out of that.
None at all. Okay, second storyline here. Bryce Harper's back, and he's back in the blink of an eye for the Tommy John surgery that he just had. Here we are in early May, way ahead of the timeline. He's back on the field, and he's back to being Bryce Harper in just 5 games.
What's really incredible, did you know that this is the fastest a player has ever recovered from Tommy John surgery? Ever. 160 days.
So I thought Shohei missed a little bit less time than this because when he got his Tommy John surgery, they had to shut him down from pitching, but he was still DHing. But he missed more time than Harper. Harper's time away from baseball and off the field was less than Ohtani's. That's pretty crazy. The dude is a cyborg.
Yeah. 160 days. He broke the record. Tony Womack had the record, 182 days. Jay Buhner, shout out, 207 days. Carl Crawford, 221 days. Those are all position players. It's not physically possible for a pitcher to come back from Tommy John surgery in 160 days. But Bryce Harper is a position player. I think they're going to try and move him to first base when he gets a little bit healthier with his elbow and doesn't have to throw quite as much. Well, Rhys Hoskins is out for the season, so they kind of need a first baseman. They haven't gotten a whole lot of production from first base in general. So if Bryce can slide into that spot, they can, fill the DH spot with something else. But it's good that he's back because the Phillies have been kind of mediocre. And, as much as their postseason run was fun last year, I mean, there was a lot of Bryce magic sprinkled in there and a lot of fortune to go along with the World Series run.
At the time of recording this, they're 16-19. So if they want to make another run again, and I'm not sure they will, because again, it's an older team. Like, we'll just see if it clicks for the second year in a row. We'll see if the pitching holds up, especially in the rotation again. But if they want to do something like that again, they need Bryce Harper. And they need Bryce Harper to be Bryce Harper. So the fact that he only missed a month of time is a blessing beyond belief for the Phillies.
There's some optimism too. I mean, Bryce is already hitting pretty well, and there's some optimism that his injury is not going to prevent him from hitting well. You used the Shohei Ohtani example. So Shohei in 2018 to 2019, he took 218 days to recover from Tommy John surgery. He came back in 2019 and had a pretty typical Shohei year. He slugged 500, he hit 283, got on base 34% of the time, hit 18 home runs. Like, it's all there. There's not a thought that the Tommy John will prevent him from being able to be a good hitter. And also in a left-handed swing, the front elbow, which is the one Bryce hurt, it requires a little bit less torque and less stress on the UCL. So that leads to a little bit more promising for Bryce. But it's going to be exciting to see. Me and you have mentioned this, but we both come 180 degrees around on Bryce Harper throughout his career. His walk year was awful. There were some times the Nationals, he was just so maddeningly inconsistent. But when he's been a Philly, he's been worth every dime of that contract. Doesn't matter he's missed time with Tommy John surgery. Stuff like this shows he really fucking cares about playing baseball and really cares about winning. So that's why he decided to come back so clearly. I mean, he blew off a rehab assignment to just come back and play for the Phillies.
When Bryce Harper signed that contract back in 2019, I don't think there was anybody out there less of a proponent for it than me. I thought that if a team was smart, they should give Harper a 3-4 year deal for 20 to 25 million a year. Because again, he'd come off a season where he put up less than 2 wins above replacement. His defense wasn't good. He'd been inconsistent at times. He had the one huge season in 2015, but after that, there was a lot of what if in his career. Well, I've done a full 180 on that. You fast forward to now, my opinion on him has totally changed. If he retired today, he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He's a Hall of Famer already.
Mm-hmm.
And he's only going to keep adding to that career as his time goes on in Philly. And the dude's one of the best hitters in baseball. So, yeah, I had my time where you could call it a hot take. You could call it a lukewarm take where I said, I wasn't all that sold on Bryce Harper at a point in his career. Yeah, that's out the window now.
Let's move on to our third storyline here in the MLB Wraparound. Luis Garcia, who famously pitched the final 5 innings of that memorable 18-inning game at T-Mobile Park last October, is on the shelf. He's going to have Tommy John surgery, exited last Monday's game with elbow discomfort after only 8 pitches. And the Astros announced on Friday that he will miss the rest of the 2023 season with Tommy John surgery, and they hope he's going to be back for the 2024 season. Pretty good stalwart in that Astros rotation. They will no longer have, and hear this, Lyle, he's not the only one out at the Astros rotation. Forrest Whitley got his last start skipped. He's down in AAA with the Astros. Urquidy has shoulder discomfort. He's on the shelf. Lance McCullers has a forearm strain. He's on the shelf as well. This Astros rotation is thinning out quickly. When they were going down the stretch last year to the World Series, they kept saying nobody can match their depth. Well, that depth is gone. It is 1,000% gone.
Garcia was what, their 7th starter last year? Either their 6th or 7th guy?
Yeah, I think it was Javier was, if Javier was 6, then Garcia was 7.
Oh, I think Javier was even pushed up further than that, because I was thinking of Urquidy and Garcia as the 6 and 7 guys. I think they had even more before that. Or maybe it was 5 and 6. So point being, we're just getting into the nitty-gritty numbers here and the details. But point being, the Astros' depth last year in their rotation was absolutely unmatched and basically like nothing we'd ever seen. It's not like that right now. You lose Justin Verlander to the Mets. You have all the injuries that TJ just outlined. There's a reason the Astros are hovering right around 500 these days. They just don't have the depth on the field right now. And it's showing because they're not playing elite baseball.
And another thing for this Astros rotation, they decided not to sign anybody this offseason. After losing Verlander, I think they made Verlander an offer, but they didn't sign anyone else to supplement this rotation, and they trusted the depth. And that's where trusting your depth can, I guess, come back to bite you. If your depth goes away, then all of a sudden you got guys that you have JP France, who I guess he looked good against the Mariners. They have a good penchant for making guys look good in their major league debuts. But, I don't know if the Astros really want JP France starting, for the rest of the season in the rotation. They might go make a move, but as it stands now, that's what it's going to be. And that was just a decision they made. And now we're going to have to see how it works out.
So I think they banked on Hunter Brown being good. And that part they got right because he's been awesome. So you've got Hunter Brown, you've still got Framber, and you've still got Christian Javier, which, I mean, you put that 1-2-3 up against any other 1-2-3 in baseball, it's not the best one, but it's still up there. So we're talking about the Astros' depth here, but it's perspective because they're still one of the most loaded teams in baseball for a reason. But I think the reason they didn't sign anybody is because you take those 3 guys and then you add a healthy McCullers, you add a healthy Urquidy, you add a healthy Luis Garcia. At least they thought at the time. I think they still felt pretty good about the rotation, but they have had the injury bug hit them like a train here in 2023. And that's not even including Altuve in the lineup. Mm-hmm.
And you could look at their lineup too, and it's just, we saw it didn't look like the Astros we saw towards the end of last season when the past series this past weekend didn't look the same. That's just all part of defending your World Series title.
One note on that. The Houston Astros in their starting lineup currently have 3 guys with an OPS plus above 100. One of them
is Jeremy one of them?
He is. He is at 102, so
wow.
Barely.
Career average then.
Again, he got all this hype last year, and yes, he's a great defender, but it's not like he was some elite bat, just in the postseason. He was league average as a hitter last year. Anyway, point being, he's been about league average again this year as a bat, maybe slightly above. The only 2 guys hitting in the lineup right now are Yordan and Kyle Tucker. The rest of the guys are not, including Alex Bregman. So, look, people have had their worries about the Mariners through the first month or so, and some of them are fair, but they're not the only team struggling. Like, teams like the Astros have their things to figure out right now, too.
It doesn't help that the Rangers they're off to a really hot start. They look good, and they have had Jacob deGrom about half the time, right? That's something that they're going to have to keep an eye on.
And they haven't had Corey Seager.
Nope.
So, yeah, the Rangers, they'll be a team to circle to see if they keep this up. Okay, our favorite segment, our Russell Wilson Umpire of the Week. And boy, do we have a good one this week. Just as a quick reminder, to win this award, you either have to miserably fail to see over the middle, not let a play develop, or be downright insufferable. Somebody met those requirements this week, TJ. I'll let you tell everybody who it was.
It wasn't just somebody. It was multiple. We're giving this award this week to the entire umpiring crew of May 4th's Rays-Pirates game. This is especially going to crew chief Adrian Johnson because he's in charge of the whole crew. But this was a crew decision in that May 4th game. Zach Eflin was pitching on the mound for the Tampa Bay Rays. He wears a wedding ring. He's a right-handed pitcher, and he wears a wedding ring on his left hand, his left ring finger, which is as you would guess, in his glove. Now, the lovely men in black decided that he should not be allowed to wear that ring while pitching. Note that since he got married in 2020, he has worn this wedding ring for every single start since 2021. Every single one. He's worn the wedding ring. The umpires have seen it before, and they've said, oh, okay. But now we have a group of men who've decided that he should not be allowed to wear it. Why? I don't know. And they threatened him and said, hey, listen, it's going to come down to this point. You're either going to get ejected or you're going to have to take the ring off. And he's like, fine. Puts it around his neck in a necklace. But I can't say I've seen an umpiring crew threaten to toss someone for wearing a wedding ring before. That is a first.
Like, who cares? I don't know what these guys are going on about. Like, so Eflin talked about this after the game, right? He said this umpiring crew was a little more on edge. They seem to have an issue with it. Then adding, I have never been asked to take this thing off in any of my other starts. I mean, you just kind of outlined it there. What?
He said, I've seen other pitchers wear it. Position players can call timeout, get pine tar, whatever they want. They can wear all these bracelets and stuff, but I can't wear a ring on my gloved hand. Gloved hand. Like, not touching the ball. Like, not, like, no way to make contact with it, but still, you're getting tossed if you wear this.
Have these umpires actually talked about publicly what this specific issue was that he was wearing it? I haven't heard it.
Probably thought in some way it could doctor the baseball and give him an advantage. I don't know. I don't see how that's physically possible. You can always take the ring and inspect it and say, okay, there's no problem with this. You can always do that. There's always an option. Like, you can inspect whatever the pitcher's wearing. But they decided to just levy an ejection against him instead. Just like the fine men we know. We do love that. Okay, Lyle, let's wrap up the show with Speak Your Mind. All right, what's on your mind this week?
It's actually a little interesting. My Speak Your Mind this week is, I'm not sure if I have one. And the reason is because over the last week, I feel like I've been doing a ton of stuff revolving around this podcast. And I mean, both of us always are. Not that that's all that different. But with stuff this week, I feel like I was really busy and kind of had my head down with a lot of stuff trying to get things done for this podcast. And I was kind of sitting this week thinking, saying, man, what's been on my mind this week? And there wasn't that much other than I'm trying to, we're trying to make stuff happen with this podcast. We've got a laundry list of things that we're still trying to get done and goals we want to accomplish. So I'd say it was mostly revolved around that. I will throw this one thing in there. However, shout out the Seattle Kraken. 5 goals in the second period on Sunday. That was something. I'll tell you what. I didn't think there was any. What's up?
It's a big Seattle over Texas week this weekend.
Yes, it is. Because I didn't think there was any way in the world they were putting up that many goals on the Dallas Stars. I think Dallas is better than them on paper. I think most people do. And I didn't think there was no chance that they could win this game at home, especially with the electric crowd. But to score 7 goals, that was insane.
Without your top 2 goal scorers playing.
Correct.
By the way. Or your top 2 scorers. I don't know if it was final goals, but you're missing your top 2 scorers in Burkowski and Jared McCann, and still putting up 7 goals with 7 different guys, which is absolutely insane. They do probably have the best depth of any team remaining. This is my deeply nuanced, like, I've been watching hockey since I was 3 years old, like information, takes, analysis. I know that's why you come and listen to this podcast to hear me talk about hockey. Yeah, it's been fun to watch. I want to go to a playoff game so bad. I enjoyed the game I went to regular season. It felt like maybe like the environment was a tiny bit like brought down a little bit, but I'm sure in the playoffs it's absolutely electric. It really is. My Speak Your Mind this week, it is baseball related, unfortunately, because this happened on Sunday. There was a baseball rule I did not know, and I was flabbergasted. I was at the Oregon State-Utah game on Sunday. Did you know there's a concussion protocol in baseball?
I guess it doesn't shock me that there is. I don't know that there's a rule behind it, so you might have to enlighten me on this.
So it went, the kid for Utah, the catcher, got beamed in the head in the first inning, went down to first base, then got taken out of the game. He was replaced. But bottom of the first inning comes around. He comes back on the field and starts catching. And we're all in the press box thinking, well, you just got taken out of the game. You can't do that. So the SIDs scramble and they go down and check the rules. And the rule is that you can get taken out of the game to get evaluated for a concussion. If you don't feel like you have one, you can re-enter in that spot. So he re-entered. It's like, okay. And the guy who entered for him can only re-enter in that spot as well. So the backup catcher can only come in that spot in the order, replacing him. And then about an inning later, he got taken out permanently. So it was just kind of a weird situation. But there were some pretty good baseball minds that have seen quite a lot of baseball in that press box, and nobody had heard of that rule before. Nobody. Just it was kind of puzzling. So shout out the Utah Utes for memorizing the NCAA rule book on what you can do with injuries, because I certainly have not.
Is that a college baseball rule, or does it apply in the big leagues too?
Probably. I'd say
I don't
probably.
know.
Yeah, I'd say probably. I'm not totally sure. So I don't know. So that's probably off the top of my head. And now I guess my second speak your mind this week is, now that summer is coming up, and wow, I honestly didn't think about this till 30 seconds ago. We were just discussing this before recording this. It's summer, so I'm going to remind all my listeners, you have paid time off. Please take it. Go on vacation. Go outside. Go hop on a flight. Go book it. Use Google Flights. It's great. Use the Explore tab on Google Flights. You can go fly wherever you want, and you probably get a pretty good deal.
Maybe we'll have to do something like that this summer to get to a road series.
Yeah, we'll do that.
And do some content. I mean, I've had that idea now for a couple months, saying we should do something like that over the summer. I know we were talking about this before getting on here too, but now just talking about it here with everybody, I think that'd be really fun to get to a road series for the M's this year. So if we can
when
make
do
it
they
happen,
go to Oakland? We need to, so we're going to Oakland.
No. So I've been to O.co once, and that will be the last time I ever go there, unless it's an extenuating circumstance. I have no interest to go back to that stadium ever again.
All right. We'll try and pick a good spot. If we can make it work it out schedule wise, then I think Lyle and I will jump at that opportunity. But even if you're not going to see a baseball game, like, book that flight. I mean, you only live one time, so please go live it. Unless you're Lyle, want to go to Europe, but that's another case.
Get out and travel this summer. No matter where it is, traveling is fun. So, like TJ said, you got paid time off, take advantage of it. For us this week, I think that'll just about wrap up this edition of the Marine Layer podcast. You guys know, you want to listen to the full podcast, we're on Apple, Spotify, Google, and Amazon. We've got video podcasts on YouTube. Go watch us on YouTube, by the way. We've got an awesome new setup. Our friend Victor Wren made us some nice graphics in the background. So check us out if you're listening right now on YouTube as well. Social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. All the ats for those are at Marine Layer Pod. Subscribe, give us a 5-star review. And for TJ Mathewson, this is Lyle Goldstein. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.